Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 of Life Romanticized. This episode is going to be about everything happens for a reason, and that saying and the concept and just everything about it, my personal stories with it, why it means so much to me, why I say it all the time, and all that. So I hope you stick around and listen, and remember that there is a Instagram for this podcast. It's at Life Romanticized Pod on Instagram, and a YouTube channel, which is Life Romanticized Pod, if you want to listen on YouTube. I want to thank you for coming back and listening. It means so much to me, and you have no idea how happy I am that you are here and that you're listening, and how happy I am recording this episode and every episode I record. So happy with this podcast. Anyway, I want to get into this topic. So I'm going to start with some background of the saying, and I'm going to tell a story. I mentioned this in the first episode, I think. It was it was the first episode about when I broke my arm and how much it changed me. So I'm going to actually explain the story. And the reasoning why I want to tell this story is because this is why I started saying this saying of everything happens for a reason. So I have to explain that, and then I'll get more into the saying. So if you honestly don't really care about the story, you can skip ahead, but to understand my reasoning behind it, it would be nice if you listen to the story. But anyway, when I was in elementary school, I did gymnastics, and I didn't do that for that long because I quit after a couple of years, but even after I quit, I was still really interested in just the sport in general. Like, I would always be doing handstands around the house and cartwheels, and I had this dream of learning how to do a front flip on the ground and like back flips. Like, I just really liked gymnastics still, even though I wasn't doing it because I think I just did other sports. And so then even in middle school, I was still really, really interested in gymnastics. And like I said, I had this dream of doing a front flip on the ground, and I would do so much research and watch so many YouTube videos of like how to make that happen. And I figured out that learning how to do it on a trampoline would benefit in learning how to do it on the ground one day. And I didn't have a trampoline, but my friends had a trampoline, so I remember just trying to like learn on that, but it wasn't like a very good one because obviously you didn't bounce high. And my friend at the time, she was doing these like classes at a trampoline gym. Not a trampoline gym. She was doing classes at an actual gym, like a gymnast gym. It's not like open to the public, I don't think. Well, no, maybe it is. But it's not one of those trampoline parks. So I'm in San Diego, and there's some trampoline parks like called Sky Zone or Jump Around, and those are like trampoline parks that like little kids go to, and the same type of trampolines that you have in your backyard. So you don't jump that high on them. They're not meant to be professional trampolines. But this place was an actual gym with professional trampolines that you can jump really, really high. You know, like you see, I don't know if they have, no, they don't, I don't think they have trampolines in the Olympics, but it's actually, I have no idea. But yeah, you can jump really, really, really high on them. They are not your typical backyard trampolines. They are meant for gymnasts to practice because there's also like trapeze stuff and the floor with like the spring in it. So I decided to go one day because I think I wanted to maybe take trampoline classes there, but my friend invited me to go like after one of her trapeze classes just for like to, I don't know, have fun and jump around and stuff. So obviously I went, and it was so much fun. Like, the trampolines, you jump really high, like very high. I'm not really sure how high, but really high. And I was learning how to do like front flips on them, and I learned correctly, I think. I'm pretty sure. I think like one of the people there, like who worked there, they were teaching me how to do it, and I did it. I was doing a bunch of front flips on the trampoline. I didn't learn how to backflip, but I was doing a bunch of like front flips, and I did a lot of them. It was so much fun. And the end of the night comes, and we're about to leave. And I remember because I was putting my shoes on and the place was about to close. And then my friend says, hey, do you want to go back out and do a couple more? Because I think we had 10 minutes left. And I was like, oh, sure, why not? Because obviously, like, it was so much fun. So I go back out there, and now I don't remember if I did like a couple front flips and it happened on the last one, or if it was the first flip that I was doing. But basically, I remember jumping up and something wasn't right. Something happened and I stalled in the air, and I don't know why. It just, something wasn't right. So I jump, I stall in the air for some reason, and then I literally land on my arm. And I don't want to go into the details of the specific break because every time I think about it, it just, like, my whole body cringes and shudders. You know when you like think of something and you shudder? I don't know if that's the right word. I think it is, but for me, when I think about this, I like cringe and I shudder. And I remember right after it happened, when I thought about it, I would get really nauseous because I don't do well with this type of stuff, because it was pretty, like, yeah, it was really bad. But just know that I heard the bone break. I heard it. So that's why I'm saying this isn't your typical like break, because I knew a lot of people growing up who like broke their arms, and I'm putting that in quotes because they didn't actually break it. It was a fracture, but they still call it a break because for some reason that's just like what people say. Like when they fracture their arm, they say they break it because usually they get a cast, even though it was just like, because a fracture is when it gets offline. I mean, yeah, it gets like offline with each other, with the bones. And like a clean break is when it actually like snaps in half. And so that's why I'm saying like this break was not like your ordinary like little kid breaks their hand or wrist or arm, when it's actually a fracture. Yeah, so this was a clean break. Like I'm talking 2 bones snapping in half. It wasn't just one, it was 2. And I heard that was probably the worst part. No, actually the pain was the worst part, but the close second was actually hearing your own bone snap. Yeah, I don't want to get into it. And it was really bad because my arm was like disfigured and all that, and the pain was unbearable. Like I'm talking the worst pain I have ever felt in my whole life. My whole life up until that point, and even now, the worst pain ever. It was so bad because I mean, I just snapped 2 of my bones in half. Obviously that's going to hurt really badly. And oh god. Yeah, it was sorry, I just got like a flashback of that. It was really bad. Like I remember thinking, well, first of all, I got really nauseous. I'm sure that's like a side effect of being in that much pain, but I remember like I felt like I wanted to throw up. I was bawling my eyes out, like bawling so badly. I remember I was thinking like I was going to die because that's how like much it hurt. So I was thinking in my head like, oh my god, like I'm going to die. Like I mean, not actually thinking that, but I was in 8th grade, so I was 13 at the time. I'm coming in here because I said 14, but I was 13, and that was what was going through a 13-year-old's head. Yeah, I mean, so that's what happened. And basically why this story made me change so much is after like the recovery and after everything. Oh, I should mention that I ended up having 2 surgeries for this. I had to have incisions in my arm for a whole year, and then I had surgery to get it out. So I had 2 surgeries altogether. The surgery wasn't even like that bad, honestly. I've had a lot of surgeries at this point that I'm like chill with that. I don't know. It was more like the recovery that sucked because I had to have a full arm cast and I couldn't do anything. And then this is where the saying everything happens for a reason comes into play. I was just so sad that I couldn't do my normal activities. And I am a trombone player. And at the time, I was obviously in like a concert band in middle school. So I played trombone, and this was in September. So it was right when the year started. Literally, I think it was 2 weeks into the school year. So I'm not even adjusted to my schedule, my classes yet. Everything's brand new. And then like something like this happens to throw off everything. Yeah, so that's why it was just really bad timing. And the thing I actually was the most sad about was not being able to play trombone and not being able to play piano, because those were like my two main instruments back then. And I was just so sad because band was my favorite class in 8th grade. It was like my peaceful time to relax and have fun, and like not to have any worries or cares. Like all the other classes were like but then band was it's just like heaven, literally. Like every time I walked in that room, it was like a break from the school day, because I think it was third period, so kind of in the middle almost. But yeah, it was like my break from school to just go in and do something I love and play music. It was my favorite class. So not being able to do that really, really, really made me sad. And not being able to play piano, because I was also a big piano player at that time, really, really sad. I just felt like all my progress just flew out the window, and that I was never going to be able to play again, like piano wise. And and at the time, my middle school was doing, so every year they did like a middle school band night. I don't know if it was called, middle school band night, where we went to the high school and like got to march on the track during a football game. And I had only done that once before, because I think only the 7th and 8th graders got to do it. So I did it in 7th grade. And then I remember it was coming up in a week. And when I was in the car going to the hospital, when I broke my arm, I'm not joking, that was the first thing that I thought of in my mind. So that just shows how much band meant to me, and still does. But yeah, the first thing I remember thinking in the car while I was in so much pain going into the hospital, I was thinking how I wasn't going to be able to do middle school band night, and that just completely, it sucked. It sucked a lot. So that is why I was so bummed and sad about all of this, because as you just heard, I was so passionate about those things, and then not being able to do them, it just felt like I couldn't really do anything. And I also broke my right arm, and I'm right-handed, so I couldn't write. I had to write with my left hand, and I said that it was right when school started, so I had a lot of homework. Like I remember I just had so much to catch up on. It was so hard to write in school and keep up with all my classes. And it was 8th grade, so like out of all of middle school, 8th grade is the hardest, because you're in the hardest classes and you're the oldest. So I just had so much stuff to figure out how to do in a new way. And so that is when I started telling myself, I don't remember even why. Like I didn't read some type of book, I didn't watch some type of YouTube video. No one told me this. Like this is literally something that just came in my head at this really low point in my life. And it was like, everything happens for a reason. You were meant to break your arm. And I remember right when I like started realizing that, I was like at peace with it, and I was okay with it. Like I was actually really, really content and okay with the matter, even though I just said I went through so much pain. I went through a surgery, went through a lot of hospital visits. I couldn't do the things that I loved most in life, but yet I was at this ease, and I was okay with life at that moment. And I was like almost like not like happy, but I was like really content with all that happened to me up until that point. Like I was content with the fact that I broke my arm, because I just remember being so comforted by the fact that this was supposed to happen to you. Like this was supposed to happen to you to make you come to this point in your life, to make you feel this way, to make you even realize that. Because obviously I realized everything happens for a reason, but I wouldn't have realized that if that thing didn't happen to me. Well, I mean, I don't know if I would have realized it later. I probably would have, but still, it really changed my perspective on life. And this was a life-changing event, because you think one way for so long, and then something like this happens to you, and then you completely change the way you see and view life. And it was pretty extreme, because like I said, I was young, and I know when you're that young, like I don't remember like what the ages are, but I don't even think my brain was that much develop. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe your brain develops more when you're like 12 and 13. But I was 13, so I know. No, I'm pretty sure your brain develops a lot more after that, like 15, 16. So it was still at that point in time where your brain is really almost maybe fully developed. Not fully developed, but like, you know what I mean. So that's why it was at like such a, I guess, a good time in my life that I realized something like this. Because then moving forward, I can implement it in my life. I started seeing everything and viewing life as stuff that was just almost like molding you to how you are now, and accepting the fact that those things have to happen in order for you to be your present self, if that makes sense. This has to happen in order for you to be this way. And every single event and thing that happens in your life creates its own like timeline. And that's why the smallest little thing can make your life go in a completely different direction. And that's what's so crazy about this is like the smallest thing. Like, let's say if you go to a coffee shop and you happen to be there at the same exact time as someone else and you meet them and then you guys become best friends. Like, that would have never happened if you never went to that coffee shop. Or let's say you are deciding what college to go to and you choose one and you go to it and you have that experience that is completely different than an experience you would have if you went to a whole nother college. Like, just think of all the people you meet, all the events that happen, all the day-to-day activities you do, the networking, your classes, your major. You could decide to change your major, you could take on a whole new thing, you could drop out of school. Like, anything can happen. Any single thing can happen. And so the best way to come to terms and be comfortable with all that is telling yourself that everything that happens to you is supposed to happen to you. It's meant that way, and it brought you to where you are now and who you are today. And I know that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, like, why are you talking about this? But I want to bring up COVID because COVID's a really good example of all this, that like everything's supposed to happen. And I know that a lot of bad stuff has come with it because obviously a lot of people have died. But in terms of like you listening to this right now and your life, that was supposed to happen. Because even though I struggled so much because of this and it changed my life so much, but it was supposed to happen because it made me who I am today. I was not completely, but I was a pretty different person before COVID. Like, I'd like to say before COVID and after COVID, even though it's not really done yet, still kind of like the aftermath of everything. Like, I was so different. And if COVID like never happened, then I don't know who the person I would be today. Like, I really don't know, because so much has happened in the result of, quarantine and just everything happening. And my life would be everyone's life would be so different. And that's what's really crazy to think about is, like, imagine if COVID never existed. Think of how different you would be. You would be at a different point in your life, and no matter what, anyone's life will be different. Like, you can't tell me that your life would not be different. Even if you stayed home all day, every day, your life would still somehow be different, because that was a big, huge event that happened. And the tiniest little things can do the same amount of change. Like, a whole pandemic can bring the same amount of change as choosing to wear a different hoodie to school that day. Like, that is how the tiniest things can make a very huge difference in your life, and a big thing can make a huge difference in your life. And that is why everything is supposed to happen the way it does. It just is, because why else would it happen? Why else would it happen? It doesn't just happen for nothing. Like, there's always meaning to everything. There was meaning for breaking my arm, because it made me appreciate life a lot more and live more in the moment, and just like be grateful for what I have. And same thing with COVID. Like, COVID made me so much more grateful and appreciative of life in general and my life. And to focus on other things besides me and everyone else's lives that were affected too, it made me really analyze everything and myself. I don't need to go into detail about that. The path you are on, you are supposed to be on it. And if you're not happy with that path, then you are in control and you have the power to change that. You could easily change it, and that's the beauty of everything happening for you and the path that you are meant to be on. If you want to change it, guess who can do that? You can do it. You can change that. And I'm not saying that you're like changing your future if you do that. It's like, that's not how you think about it. You are actively in the present moment deciding your future subconsciously, like, while not actually doing it, because every decision you're making and every thing you are doing, people you are talking to and being friends with, just every little thing down to the minute, smallest details, you are doing and you are changing everything. Okay, I just listened back to that and that made no sense, and I'm really sorry because this is hard for me to explain. Just some concepts in my head, I understand it so much, but then when I try to explain it, it's so difficult for me. And yeah, I really don't know how else to explain it. I just hope you understood what I just said. Here, let me try again. Like, everything you are doing, every small little thing in your life is deciding the future almost for you. So that's why it's meant to happen, because you're not like actively aware of what is happening, if that makes sense. That's why, like, when you do choose to wear like a different hoodie that day, that isn't you like, oh, I'm gonna wear this different hoodie to, you know, like run into this certain person so they could talk to me about something. Like, that's not what you're doing. You're choosing to wear that hoodie because you want to wear it. And then whatever happens was meant to happen, and it was supposed to happen. Okay, I think I'm just going to end it here because I feel like I'm not making that much sense and I'm just rambling. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I promise that the future ones won't be this jumbled and confusing, and hopefully I can explain stuff better. You know, I will explain stuff better in the future. But if you did understand this, then that is awesome, and I'm so glad that you can understand what I'm saying. Please rate the podcast on whatever you're listening to, and follow the Instagram and the YouTube channel if you want. That would be really cool. I hope you have a great week and a great day. And if it's not great, then you can turn it around. You got this. Bye.